people who visited Canada for the first time, what was your "yeah this is Canada" moment? Moved from Germany to Canada in December of '99. Watched the weather forecast for the next day. Minus 35 degrees Celsius. Wind chill minus 55 degrees Celsius. Me. WTF is wind chill? Whatever. Can't be that big a deal. Next day. Goes outside. Wearing run-of-the-mill German winter gear which is just not cut out for Canadian winter. Is back inside about 10 seconds later. Now knows what wind chill is. I once went to a consultation for LASIK eye surgery. During the consultation, they put those numbing eye drops in your eyes. It was minus 42 in Edmonton that day. I left the building and walked about a block to Staples to buy myself an iPod. I was unaware that you could get frostbite on your eyeballs. I was riding a ferry from Port Angeles to Victoria. While on the boat, I for some reason took my passport out and put it under my leg. When we arrived I had forgotten about this and started getting off the boat. I got about halfway down the ramp when I realized that I had forgotten my passport, misplaced it. Ran back desperately trying to find it. One of the last people off the boat told me that the captain had it and that they were giving it to the Canadian Border Patrol. I get down to Border Patrol and explain what happened. They radio their colleagues and get word back that they have it and are bringing it down now. At this point I've said sorry about 50 million times because I feel like an idiot American. They finally come down with my passport and the guy hands it to me and is like, "Mom, I'm so sorry about that." I was completely confused. This border agent was saying sorry to me because I was the dumbass that lost my passport on the boat ride over. Now my favorite place for a quick getaway is Canada. I think we use sorry a lot in Canada just to verbalize empathy, not necessarily as an admission of fault. Confuses us too though. I've lived here all my life, but a little while ago I had a new co-worker who had just come from Russia. After a couple months of working with him he mentioned that he had started apologizing more, even if he didn't need to, as he was saying that he took a couple steps back and bumped into a garbage can. Without missing a beat he turned to look at it and said, "Oh, sorry." Then he looked back at me with a kind of confused face. I just started laughing and told him he was a Canadian now. Apologizing to inanimate objects is the law here. Driving across the border on my first trip to Montreal and being greeted with a jubilant bonjour from the guy at customs. Seriously, friendliest border guard I've ever encountered, and was elated AF when he saw my American passport and realized I was actually speaking French to him. We crossed the border at Niagara Falls. The border officer took our passports and got seriously excited that 3 Australians were entering his country. After the surly bastards employed by Australian and American governments at the borders, it was a very pleasant surprise. I'm Australian. Was in Canada for 6 weeks a few months ago. Coming from a country that is 90% just flat, seeing actual proper mountains was that moment for me. I live in Saskatchewan, Canada, and I gotta say, if you're ever in Canada again and feel homesick, come here. You can drive for hours in any direction without seeing anything bigger than a hill. Yes, I get it, other provinces are very flat as well. The air. I moved to Newfoundland from Texas and it was night and day in terms of air quality. It felt like I was breathing for the first time. Went to a pharmacy. Woman in front of me attempted to use an expired coupon. She actually accepted the fact that it was expired, apologized, and finished her transaction quickly and peacefully. Is it possible for Americans to learn this power? People said thank you to the driver getting off the bus, even from the back. They just yelled it and no one cared that they yelled on the bus because it was to thank the driver. Cigarettes. Kept hidden under a steel flap in the store. And then when you do get them, they have black lungs and withered fetus pics all over them. Is this not normal? We have this in Thailand as well. I asked for no mustard on my cheeseburger. The guy brought me my cheeseburger and it had mustard, which I hate. I asked him nicely if I could have another one without mustard. He instantly acknowledged that he remembered me asking for no mustard, ran to the kitchen to get the new burger made and came back to apologize again. He genuinely felt bad for the mistake. I don't even know if he made the mistake or the cook in the back, but he made me feel like he really cared. In the US, this same mistake has happened before and I've been talked to like if I forgot to ask for this request, and I almost felt like I screwed up, even when I know I didn't. My flight was cancelled due to the snow, so after spending 8 hours on a flight from Paris after 2 hours on a flight from Barcelona, and with another hour and a half to where I needed to be, I had a delay of indeterminate length in Toronto Pearson Airport. I was there for 8 hours. In that time, I heard people who look like Californian surfers end every sentence with a. 4 people offered to lend me their phones to call the person who'd be waiting for me up in Sudbury, because mine had died. I learned that the fun little fact that I had previously considered entirely impractical, that -40 centigrade is the same as -40 Fahrenheit, is a thing that actually happens. I'm not one for national stereotypes, but Canada's about as Canadian as it gets. I love it. Canada's about as Canadian as it gets. I'm gonna use that. I went to Canada, and as I finished customs, or however it's spelt, sorry, I walked out and into the main area waiting for my ride. I got distracted by 2 men riding a bicycle in shorts. They were police, all in a building, while it was snowing outside. I encountered a cop on a bicycle inside a store once. We chatted and he was super chill. Let me ride his bike around the store. It had red and blue strobes and the battery pack was a fake water bottle. Afterward we had a drag race on the street. Him on his bike and me in my beater truck. It was hilarious and he was surprisingly quick. Literally had no same businesses as the US. Everything was different and just gave off that Canada vibe. Also I was waiting in line for a concert and I was so cold. This was February in Vancouver. And someone went to a nearby store and actually got me gloves. Thank you again, glove dude. My sister is on vacation in Canada and is staying at some nature lodge thing. She sent me a snap video of her drinking Tim Hortons coffee. She panned up the video to show a moose in the distance doing moose things. The caption said chillin' with breakfast and a moose. Seemed pretty Canadian to me. Tim's is crap though. About 30 years ago as a college freshman I went on a donut run with some friends. From Troy NY to Montreal. About 5 hours drive. Somewhere I have a snapshot of my then girlfriend and myself standing in front of Monsieur Donut. That was my yeah, this is Canada moment. There were ice sculptures sitting out on the sidewalk as advertisements. I then realized that it was cold enough to be able to do that with little to no melting. Man, these people are seeing more things Canadian than I ever have and I live here. I've never seen a moose or frozen sculptures next to store signs. You have to get out and see some moose, meese, mooses, whatever. I love them. Where I grew up they would always wander through our yard, but now I'm going too far south and there aren't any. You have no idea how big moose actually are. They're massive. A portrait of the Queen of Canada, Her Majesty Elizabeth II hung prominently over a mantel with a Vimy Ridge commemoration plaque on it and a pair of hockey sticks leaning against the fireplace below draped in drying socks. Stayed in a small wooden cabin for a few days at the beginning. There was a can of bear spray on the side which we laughed about, until our hosts came to introduce themselves and told us that the largest bear in the area had been woken up early by cross-country skiers and was now out roaming and to be careful. Yup, I work at a well-known Canadian hardware sporting goods store and we sell anywhere from 2-4 cans of bear spray a day. I also live within a 2-hour drive from the Rockies, which definitely has something to do with it. Was visiting Vancouver, walking home around 2 AM and our group of 4 guys was approaching a rowdy bunch of drunk guys. Being from the States, we were prepared for some crap talk and bulls posturing. Instead we were greeted with "Oi, hey there fellas, go Canucks. Have a good night." We all had a good laugh as to say yeah, this is Canada. Could have gone either way, especially in Van. So I'm used to entering the US through customs and whatnot. And US border control PPL are always super SRSBSNS and ugh, I hate you, your children, and your grandchildren. Please love ye. At least the times I have entered into the US. But entering into Canada was like going to an amusement park. I just went for the first time a few weeks ago and the guy was like, "Hey, how you doing?" and then actually had a super chill conversation with us. I mean, of course doing his job, but I've literally never encountered something like that before. He then wished us luck on the boat trip we were going on the next day and said he hoped all was well back home in Oklahoma. Dude was great. And then the first building we see has a giant billboard that says maple syrup sale and I lost my crap because it's just such a beautiful country. Funny enough, as a Canadian, my experience crossing the border is much the opposite. I always find American border guards to be professional and somewhat friendly to an extent, while returning to Canada always feels like an interrogation. Aussie here, crossing the border from the US. There was a noticeable change in vibe. It was tangible, friendlier and cleaner. Sorry USA, still love ya. I had a similar experience during a recent Canada-US trip. Boarded a flight in Calgary and landed in Chicago. The difference in vibe, environment, cleanliness, people, etc. was hard to ignore. It did make me a bit sad during my first few hours there. I still ended up having a great time in Chicago, though. Today I couldn't figure out how the Presto cards worked getting off the train, cause I'm used to having to buzz out as well on the Oyster card system. Some bloke came back round the barriers, showed me that you just needed to walk through and said good day. In London I would have been standing there another 5 minutes at least. For the train and go buses, don't forget to tap on and tap off. For transit, just tap once. Have a good day. Granville Street, Vancouver. People smoking weed everywhere, just casually. People driving and weed drifting out of their car. Bums begging for money and smoking weed. Stepping out of the bar to have a smoke and everyone else seemed to have a joint. Granville's official scent is pretty much pee and pot. Also most of those bums are just panhandlers. I did see an instance though where some bum was in the middle of the sidewalk probably high as a kite inside a cardboard box. He was rowing as if it was a boat. One weekend in Canada, dead of winter 2018. I didn't see a single security camera in any of the stores. Guess they really trust everyone. Well, apparently that is changing. I work in a dollar store and we have cameras. A dollar store. Took a Canadian cruise in 2016. After departing from Boston and stopping in Maine, the first Canadian stop was in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I got off the boat, walked onto Canadian soil for the first time, and Crash Test Dummies was playing over loudspeakers in the street. And not a hit song. Some obscure song I'd never heard before. Canadian content laws. They probably play that song 4 times a week. It's the worst actually. Cancan laws, that is. My luggage didn't make it to Canada. It got stuck in Frankfurt. Got called to our information desk where a Canadian dude addressed me as Mr. Anderson and was super apologetic about the whole mess. I didn't care though. I was just happy to finally be in Canada. Getting first-hand experience with the Canadian sorry treatment was awesome. Stayed for 2 weeks and it was great. Went to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Saw the Mississauga Steelheads play against Kingston. Went to Ottawa for the Alfie ceremony and then saw Laval Predators play against a team I can't remember. I also went to a Raptors 905 game. My first basketball game ever. For some reason my phone couldn't get internet reception after the Laval game, which meant that I couldn't order an Uber to drive me back to my hotel in Montreal, but a lady was kind enough to drive me to a Tim Hortons with free Wi-Fi. I love you, Canada. Swedish dude. Here's a tip for you traveling to Canada. Most Tim Hortons have free Wi-Fi, so just go walking around or ask for the nearest Tim Hortons and there's a high chance it'll have free Wi-Fi. You don't even need to buy anything to use it. There's a sticker out the front door with the login details. This is back in early January 1998. I had grown up in NYC and lived there all my life, but I was a big Rangers fan and had this hazy idea of Canada being a really great place, particularly because of how hockey mad I heard the country was. My friend and I decided to go up to Toronto to watch the Rangers Bruins. Wow, my memory is faulty. Play the Leafs and visit the Hockey Hall of Fame. It was my first time out of the USA. We get into Toronto and go to our place we were staying downtown, drop off our bags, and decide to walk around. We wind up in Nathan Phillips Square. And lo and behold, what do we stumble upon but a bunch of young guys playing shinny. We had brought our ice skates with us, thinking we might do some skating, but no hockey equipment. My friend and I turned to each other and we were like, I wish we could join them. Then we realized, hey, we'll just hit up a sporting goods store, grab a cheap hockey stick, and see if they're out there the next night. Sure enough, that's exactly what we did, and we were welcomed into their shinny game the next night, playing in Nathan Phillips Square. In the foreign country of Canada, with Christmas lights all still up on the buildings all around and Canadian flags flying nearby, it was such an incredible moment in my life. I'll never forget it. Postscript to the story. 2 years later, I wound up meeting a girl from Edmonton, and we wound up getting married and I moved to Canada and became a citizen. Been here for almost 20 years now and I still love it here. Seeing a Tim Hortons in the flesh. They're one of the first things you see once you pass customs at any Canadian airport, and my god do I have a love for Timbits now. We have recruited yet another person. Timbits are the bomb. Cousin picked me up at the airport, Toronto, Ontario, and told me that the skies were clear, the air was fresh, and the temperature was -20. Ah yes, bathing suit season. I'm Scottish and used to cold weather. Stepped out of the airport in Ottawa to be hit with the lowest temperature I'll ever experience, circa -38°C. Yep, I'm in Canada. I came to Canada as an exchange student. Somehow the agency that organized the exchange did not have the right address of my host family. So 15-year-old me was dropped off at the wrong house by an airport shuttle. Within 5 minutes of me realizing the mistake, I had 4 different neighbors helping me call the agency, offering me food and reassuring me that I could stay at their place if the issue was not resolved by the end of the day. I never felt more welcome in a foreign country. I went to Canada for the first time a couple of months ago with my boyfriend, who honestly loves the country enough that he wants to get a dual citizenship with the US. Anyways, we went to Winnipeg to see the Winnipeg Jets game and saw and heard things that kept reminding me that I'm in Canada and not just the far north of the North America region. You can get poutine anywhere, including McDonald's. There is more Tim Hortons than there is Starbucks, and everything is bilingual in stores and food packaging because of Quebec and French laws. But the thing that got me the most was at the hockey game, cause I almost lost it by laughing so hard. We sat behind the goal up in the nosebleed section, but it was still decent seats, so we were kinda by the entryway. My boyfriend still had to lean forward a little bit just to see what was going on, but the guy behind us tapped on his shoulder and with the thickest Canadian accent said, "Sorry for being a bother, but I can't see what is going on. Should you please sit back?" And there my American self almost died laughing cause of his accent and his stereotype, saying sorry and being nice and not being a butthole about it. Don't get me wrong, cause I like people being nice, but with the running joke of Canada being too nice, I thought it was just a fake stereotype. My boyfriend eventually sat back and he stared at me while I was covering my mouth to stop myself from laughing, and he looked at me like, "Really? You're laughing at that?" He took a summer internship in Toronto 2 years ago, so the stereotypes don't faze him anymore. All in all, I love Canada and hoping to go back soon. I was out drinking with some of my Canadian friends in the GTA and we called a cab to come get us. Cab showed up like 5 minutes later and I downed my drink and start hauling butt to the cab. A few PPL weren't finished with their drinks and were like, "What's wrong? Why are you rushing?" Apparently cabs work differently there than in NYBC. If you're not outside within like 1 minute, the cab is freaking leaving or calling you over and over and charging you for the time they waited. This cabbie just hung out and had a smoke, then reassured me the entire drive home that it was okay. Hey, that's still rather impolite, Imo. You luckily had a chill cabbie there. When cars don't move at the traffic light after it changes, everyone just waits for the first car to figure it out, instead of honking immediately. There is a 0% chance this happened in Vancouver. Sorry. For me it was the nature, access to the ocean, beautiful lakes, and you could see maple syrup being sold in every single shop. Plus, the unforgettable pecan butter tarts, yummy. I had just arrived in Vancouver, and I was strolling through the park when I saw a gaggle of Canadian geese, and I thought, oh, they have Canadian geese up here in, and then I facepalmed myself. When my mom first arrived in Canada, we live there now, she was getting on a bus and there were a couple PF teenagers talking loudly. A nice old lady gets up and tells them to quiet down. Now, my mother got really scared because in France, where she comes from, the lady might get beat up or yelled at, but to her surprise, they just apologized. Welcome to Canada, where everyone is decently mannered. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I am a Canadian store owner. I recently had to tell a group of rowdy teenagers to stop leaning on my shop windows because their backpacks are dirty AF, and I was the one that had to clean the glass. To my surprise, they were all immediately apologetic and understanding, and one kid even said he'd make sure to tell the others so it wouldn't happen anymore. I crossed over to visit cousins in Scarborough and immediately I got the "Thas wild fam, how are baitings though? I'll reach next time I cut," and we can down some bottles, and Drake played in the background during this interaction. Was driving and no one was honking or driving like a dong. We just came in from Seattle. Oh, and everyone calls everyone else buddy. Also enjoyed some Costco poutine. Although they fricked up the pizza. How do you mess up Costco pizza? Canadian here. Costco anything is amazing. I don't know how they messed up the pizza, but try the hot dog and fries with an ice cream next time. I live in Washington and have visited Whistler, BC quite a lot as a youth for ski trips with the family, but those weren't exactly Canadian. The first very clearly Canadian experience was many years later at the age of 22 or around there for my brother's bachelor party, where on our way home we stopped to get some poutine. My first ever. That crap was dynamite. So amazingly good, the squeaky cheese, the warm gravy, the crispy fries, it was perfect. That to me was a very Canadian experience. Squeaky cheese. I can't. I'm an American that immigrated to Canada, and during my first week here, this is a conversation I heard in front of most a grocery store. "Hey, you gave me a loonie but you were supposed to give me a tony." "No, I'm pretty certain I was only supposed to give you a loonie." "No, I was supposed to get a tony." "Oh wait, I am so sorry, you were right. I was wrong and I'm so sorry." "It's okay." "No, I feel terrible. I cannot apologize enough." My brother was sitting on a set of steps leading up to Ripley's aquarium. His cell phone slid out of his pocket when he got up and we started walking. At this point we were out of sight, but a man came up and said to my brother, "Hey little dude, I think you left your phone on the ground near the aquarium. Here you go." He was huffing and puffing because he ran a solid half mile to reach him. When my brother took off his phone case, there was a $20 bill in there and a note saying, "Have a nice day." I'm Indian, only ever been in India and seen Indian people. Was bullied in India for being dark and ugly. Came to Canada at 11. 5 minutes after stepping out of the plane to Canada, a black woman with long dreads walked up to me and said I had such a beautiful smile, and an Asian man next to her nodded in agreement. I will never forget that moment. I'll never forget that welcome. Love my fellow Canadians. I was staying at a bed and breakfast in a beautiful lake house. The owner is making breakfast and says the weather's nice out today. To make matters more Canadian, we went to the shop and they had maple cookies and ketchup chips. Amazing country. I lived there for a year and I hit a pedestrian, only at 10 mph, and when I got out he started saying sorry even knowing it wasn't his fault. That is why we have legislation that saying sorry is not an admission of guilt. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for